Hello students, today I'm going to teach you the chapter on power sharing. In this video, I'm going to explain the power sharing arrangements in Belgium and Sri Lanka, their consequences and their comparisons. Now, power sharing is the first chapter of our political science book. Power sharing, as the title suggests, is all about sharing of power and its consequences. It can be sharing of power among different levels of the government, organs of the government, or social groups, etc. The concept of power sharing has been explained with the help of two case studies, that of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Belgium is a small country in Europe. It is smaller than the state of Haryana. It gives us an idea how small this country is. Now, students, try and imagine or visualize a country like India. We are such a huge country, and Haryana is a very small state. So, if you see that, you'll be able to visualize how small this country of Belgium is. Let's come and talk about the ethnic composition now. 59% live in the Flemish region and speak Dutch language. If you look at the map, you'll be able to see that the yellow part has been denoted, which shows the Dutch speaking people, whereas 40% live in the Wallonia region and speak French. This is the part of the map which is denoted in the red color. 1% speak German. This is that shaded area that you can see in the map. Now, if we talk about Brussels, the capital, which has been shown in orange, a very small part, there the ethnic composition is absolutely reverse. Here, 80% speak French and 20% are Dutch speaking people. But the minority French speaking community was rich and powerful. This was not liked by the Dutch speaking community, who got the benefit of economic development and education much later. This obviously led to tensions between the two communities. Now, we are going to look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is our neighboring country. It's an island country. It got an independence in 1948. Sri Lanka also has about 2 crore people, almost same as Haryana. Here also, like Belgium, the population is diverse. In Sri Lanka, we have 74% of Sinhala speaking community. There are 18% Tamil speakers, but the Tamils are further divided into two groups, the native Tamils and the Indian Tamils. Indian Tamil are people whose forefather came from India as plantation workers. I'm sure, children, all of you know this, that when Britishers were ruling, there were many people who were taken to other areas to work in the plantations. Plantation is a labor intensive industry. So people were taken and they were made to work there. 7% are Christians who are both Tamil and Sinhala. Now that we have seen how diverse both the countries are, we will first understand what the Sri Lankan government did to take care of its ethnic population. The government followed the majoritarianism. Majoritarianism, student, is a belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way it wants by disregarding the wishes of the minority community. Now, to follow this policy, the elected government of Sri Lanka passed an act in 1956. According to this act, the government recognized Sinhala as the only official language, disregarding the language of the Tamils. It made preferential policies favoring Sinhala applicants for university positions and for government jobs. Obviously, This was not liked by the Tamils. It further made provisions for protection and propagation of Buddhism. So the relation between the two communities became strained. It is obvious that when you know the needs or the demands of a minority community are not looked into, they would obviously not like it, and the relation between the two communities, that is why, became strained. Let us see and understand what happened after all those majoritarian steps adopted by the elected government. The parties were launched for recognition of Tamil as an official language. There were a lot of struggles happening there. People obviously wanted their own language to be recognized. Further, political organizations were formed demanding Tamil Eelam or a Tamil state. If you look at the map, you will see the people wanted, wherever they were in majority in the northern and the eastern part, they wanted more autonomy there and they wanted a separate state there. This led to distrust between both the communities. There were conflicts. Then the families had to leave the country. Obviously, in a country where there is war going on, where there is no security, where people do not have any job, so the people were forced to leave the country. The civil war caused a setback to the social, cultural, and economic life, which was very obvious after the situation in Sri Lanka. Accommodation in Belgium. Children, this is also called the Belgian model. We are going to see that Belgian leaders took a different path. In Belgium also, the constitution was changed many a times. And here, the Belgian government took certain steps so that all the community people are happy and they don't feel alienated. The first step that was taken. Constitution provides for equal representation of Dutch and French speaking ministers in the central government. It was decided that both these communities, whether they was in minority or majority, the representation of the ministers will be equal. Second, some powers from the central government would be given to the state governments of both the region. Next, there was a separate government in Brussels, which both the communities have equal representation. Now, why both these communities agreed to have equal representation here as well? This happened because both the communities agreed to have equal representation in the center. Lastly, there was a third government called the community government. The community government is elected by the people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French, and German speaking, no matter where they lived. And the government had powers regarding culture, education, and language related issues. Now we're going to see the consequences. Once the government tried to accommodate or share power, and when all the communities tried to share power with each other, what was the consequences? First, it helped avoid the civic strife between the major communities, like the way we saw in Sri Lanka. Because the minority community felt alienated, there it turned out into a civil war. But here we see that this kind of a situation was averted. Next, Brussels was chosen as the headquarter of European Union, which is as a symbol of unity, because Brussels gives us the most beautiful example of power sharing. Conclusion. Now, how do we conclude the entire both these case studies? Very simple, children, to understand. Sri Lanka, elected government, it followed majoritarianism. It tried to dominate the minority. It made them unhappy. That is why there was a civil war-like condition. They did not recognize the minority actually. In Belgium, again, an elected government, but it tried to share power. And because it tried to share power or it tried to accommodate everybody, they tried to recognize the minorities. This led to peace and prosperity. Now we are going to see what are the similarities here. Both the nations were small, both of them were ethnically diverse. So we can conclude that if power is not shared, there can be civil war, there can be unrest. Whereas if in any circumstances, if we share our power, if we try to respect the minorities, there would be peace and prosperity. Children, today I'm going to end this video here, and rest of the chapter would be taken up in the next video.